Hey everybody, Edo here, and this is Catan, Rise of the Inkas. This is one of the variant Catan games, and it's a funny story, not funny, an interesting story. I was at Gamma pitching all the Pencil First Game stuff, and a friend of mine, Morgan, the creative director at Catan Studios, came by and was like asking me about all my games, and I was like, hey, what are you working on? And he's like, well, we just released Rise of the Inkas, and it's great. It's like you're playing Catan, but you have cities that go into decline. And I was like, you mean like a Small World? And he's like, yeah, a little like Small World. And now I'm like, I'm in. I have a Catan group. I bought the game, brought it along. Everyone was super excited. And I have to say, I think this game is outstanding. I'm extremely impressed with it. One, the components and all the different elements of it are really nicely done. But I really like all of the adjustments that they've made to Catan, and really, as far as I'm concerned, fixed a lot of problems. I can sort of even describe it in the difference from Catan. It's still a relatively short rule book, so it's like Catan, but you're gonna have your grid laid out. But instead of just that perfect hex, you'll have sort of a row of your key resources, and then or columns of key resources, and then trade goods on the left and the right. So one of the key changes in the game is that you can collect your normal resources. They retheme them, so you have the llama instead of the sheep, and the potato instead of the wheat. And it's funny, like literally, this is a potato shirt that was bought for me because of the amount of potatoes I get in this game. But then there's also these other ones. You have the cocoa, fish, and feather. And so one of the nuances of this game is you're collecting your normal resources, and all the payouts, everything you're buying is exactly the same. Like your road, your settlement, your city, all of it, your development cards cost exactly the same in terms of the distribution of things. But now you can also get these trade goods in the same way as you get anything else. There are locations for the trade goods, and you have cities on it. And these can either be traded 2 of the same for any 1 good, or 3 of a kind, the set of 3 for any 2 goods. So rather than having like all those ports with the numbers where you're building towards, it's a much more natural and involved system for having some resource flexibility. So that's one of the main changes. Another huge change, right? You still have your. I mean, they're different. They look very different, but you have your settlements, and you have your cities, and you have your roads. But what you're going to be doing is, as you build out your sort of empire, you're getting culture points, and culture points just are like, they're like victory points. Like every time you get a victory point in the normal game, you get a culture point. But you're working through this chart, and so rather than just playing to 9, 10, or 11 points, whatever you want to play to, you're working until the player who's filled up all these spots, settlement, 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 settlement. Once you fill up one area, your empire goes into decline, like in Small World. And so what happens is you end up, you clear out all the roads, and then you put these brambles around the cities. Now, while they're brambled, you still gain resources from them. However, somebody else can take over that spot. They don't like get your city, they clear it out and they have to pay, but basically build over you. At which point they start getting the goods and you lose them. You can also build over yourself if you want to grow. But now it's got this great flow, much like Small World, where you're like building, you go into decline, then you can start a new empire somewhere else and still gain value from the old, but then you're losing the old. But if you make a 3rd empire, which is the last pass, you lose the original one. So the board has this great dynamic flow to it now that's way more interesting than the base game. And then just a lot of little other nuances. They changed the way the longest road works, which I really like. There's a typo. But rather than being victory points that are being passed around, it's a bonus of like a special ability, which is you can do a 2-for-1 trade on your turn. The rules say 2-for-1. The card says 1-for-1. But you can do a 2-for-1 trade during your turn of resources. So like, 2 wood for a brick or whatever. And because you're going into decline and losing roads, this thing's bouncing back and forth a lot, which is really fun. And then for the combat arts, again, or like the knight, you're moving the thief just like you normally, but it's pretty cool. But instead, you're also you're moving the thief, but you're able to defend against him and move him off if you have this card once per turn. So I just liked how it changed that from being this just the victory points passing around to the abilities passing around. Like, to me, that really worked well. You have development cards like you normally. The development cards are divided into 2 sets, 1 and 2, but that's really just to manage distribution as people are leveling up their settlements. That's really it. I'd make the argument that I would just play this over Catan always. I like it that much more. I don't know if everybody will, but I felt that it solved some nuances of the original game that I don't like as much. Other expansions have as well, but this one, for me, was a hit. So this is Catan, Rise of the Inkas. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.